Red Bull just ran a brand new engine, built from scratch, with zero help from Honda. It was supposed to fail. But what really happened? Max Verstappen stepped into the RB22 and ran more laps in one day than Aston Martin did all week. No breakdowns. No power issues. No warning signs. But that's not the crazy part. Because what they didn't show, what even the broadcasters missed, is that Verstappen may have never even used full power. This wasn't a shakedown. This was a silent message to the entire grid. And once you see what Red Bull was really doing behind those closed garage doors, you'll understand why this changes everything about the 2026 season. No one expected this to work. Not the journalists. Not the engineers watching from other teams. Not even some people inside Red Bull. Because this wasn't just a new car. This was a brand new engine. Built by Red Bull. Branded by Ford. And thrown into live testing, without a single real-world race behind it. Let's be clear. This was not an evolution of the Honda unit. This wasn't a tweak. It was a total reset. Red Bull built this from the ground up. Their own MGUK. Their own energy store. Their own combustion layout. And their own software to run it all. And they only had one chance to see if it worked. Barcelona. 3 days. Cold weather. New tires. New aero rules. And a power unit that had never completed a full race simulation. So when Hadjar crashed the car on day 1, most people assumed the worst. Red Bull went silent. 2 full days. No running. No statements. No footage. Just silence. It looked like everything was going wrong. But then, quietly, on Friday morning, Max Verstappen walked into the garage. No drama. No hype. No photo shoot. He just got in the car and started driving. And what happened next? Nobody was ready for. Friday morning. 18 degrees Celsius. Thin air. Cold tires. Red Bull had missed 2 full days of testing. Most teams had already logged hundreds of laps. Verstappen had 0. But when the RB22 rolled out of the garage, something felt different. The car didn't stutter. Didn't bounce. Didn't hesitate. From the very first out lap, it was smooth. Balanced. Stable. Lap after lap, Verstappen kept going. 10 laps. Then 20. Then 40. By midday, he had already completed more distance than Aston Martin had in 3 days. And here's the part no one saw on camera. The Red Bull garage was silent. But not because of panic. Because of disbelief. Engineers stared at the monitors. Checking temperatures. Torque output. Battery recovery. And everything was clean. Too clean. One mechanic was heard saying, "It feels like this engine has already raced." But it hadn't. This was its first real test. And it was running like it had been on the grid for years. Verstappen returned to the pits. Took off the helmet. No big celebration. Just a short quote. "The base feels good." That's Verstappen language for, "I already trust this thing." And for Red Bull, that's everything. Because trust is the last thing you expect. When you build an engine from scratch. The real moment came in the afternoon. Max went back out. And he didn't slow down. Race stints. Qualifying simulations. Energy recovery testing. By the end of the day, he logged 118 laps. That's almost 2 Grand Prix distances in one session. No breakdowns. No system resets. No radio panic. Just one sentence from the pit wall. "Keep going if you're comfortable." And Max did. Because he was. On the surface, the RB22 looked like every other Red Bull before it. Low rake. Tight side pods. A familiar silhouette. But underneath? It's an entirely new machine. Because this year, for the first time ever, Red Bull isn't just building the chassis. They're building the engine. And they're building it with Ford. Now here's what most people missed. Ford didn't just slap a badge on the power unit. They didn't just write the check. They brought something Red Bull never had under Honda. A complete hybrid logic system. Developed using Ford's electric racing programs, tested across endurance platforms, and fine-tuned for energy deployment in real time. We're talking about software that doesn't just deploy energy. It learns how to deploy it better. Every lap, every sector, every throttle trace. And it's all connected to the MGUK, which recovers energy during braking. Then sends it back through the rear axle for acceleration. Most new systems stutter. They lag. They overheat. But in Barcelona, Red Bull's ERS ran clean. From lap 1 to lap 118. That's not normal. Most teams need weeks to calibrate their hybrid maps. Red Bull needed hours. And you could see it in Max's driving. Clean exits. No oversteer from torque spikes. No lockups under reg and braking. It looked smooth because it was smooth. And that comes down to Ford. Because Ford didn't try to force a new idea onto Red Bull's system. They adapted their tech around what Verstappen needed. Real-time energy learning, smart regen thresholds, and ultra-consistent delivery at corner exit. That's the part the cameras didn't show. While everyone was watching Verstappen's lap count, the real story was being written in the telemetry. And that story says this. Red Bull now has a hybrid system that isn't just reliable. It's predictable. And for a driver like Max, predictability means trust. And trust means speed. But here's the twist. They never even ran it in full power. So now the question becomes, if this was only version 1, what happens when Red Bull unlocks everything? On paper, Verstappen's lap times looked solid. Consistent. Clean. Respectable. But not explosive. His fastest time? A 1 minute and 17.5 seconds, 5th overall. Nothing dramatic. Nothing headline-worthy. Nothing that screamed, title favorite. But if you thought that meant Red Bull was behind, you're not seeing the game. Because those laps weren't about speed. They were a smokescreen. Max wasn't chasing performance. He wasn't in qualifying trim. And crucially, he wasn't even using full power. Insiders now confirm what many suspected. Verstappen ran the entire session in a reduced engine mode, likely mode 3. That's a map designed for system validation. It reduces ERS deployment, limits torque spikes, protects the battery. It's not about going fast. It's about making sure nothing breaks. And nothing did. But here's where it gets interesting. Even in that reduced state, Max ran 118 laps. 0 red flags. No cooldown failures. No sudden shutdowns. Which means that under the surface, Red Bull's new power unit was cruising. And when you combine that with what we learned in Block 3, the conclusion is wild. Red Bull didn't just survive Barcelona. They collected clean data with an engine that was nowhere near maximum output. Why? Because Bahrain is coming. And Red Bull understands the power of silence. If they had shown everything now, the paddock would have reacted. Teams would have dug into footage, analyzed GPS overlays, scrambled to counter it. So instead, Red Bull pulled off the ultimate poker face. They gave the world clean laps. A solid quote from Verstappen. No drama. No flash. No fireworks. Just enough to keep the cameras moving on. But behind the scenes, they were preparing something no one's ready for. A full power deployment strategy. Saved for race 1. When it actually matters. And when that power comes online, it won't just be fast. It will be calculated. Because Red Bull already has the numbers. Already knows the limits. Already knows how far they can push. Before the rest of the grid even realizes what's happening. That's not adaptation. That's not recovery. That's domination. Hidden in plain sight. It was the moment no one believed would work. 2 years ago, Red Bull announced they were ending their partnership with Honda. Not right away. But soon. People thought it was madness. Why walk away from one of the most successful engine collaborations of the hybrid era? Why risk everything just to bring it in-house? Here's why. Because Red Bull didn't want to rely on anyone anymore. Not for engines. Not for answers. Not for excuses. They wanted total control. So they did something unheard of. They built a brand new division, Red Bull Powertrains. Inside their own campus at Milton Keynes. Not a customer deal. Not a supply chain. An actual engine building operation. From zero. And they brought in Ford. Not because Ford had an active F1 engine, but because they had something even more valuable. Hybrid expertise. Battery management. Electric recovery. Real-time deployment tech. Ford came in quietly. But their influence? Massive. Because it allowed Red Bull to skip the years of painful hybrid trial and error. And focus directly on integration. Everything was built for one purpose. Create a power unit that worked seamlessly with the car Max Verstappen needed to drive. Not just fast, but predictable, balanced, intelligent. And now, 2 years later, in a quiet garage in Barcelona, it all came together. Not by accident, not by luck, but by design. The Hadjar crash? Delayed the data. The media? Focused on lap times. But Red Bull didn't care. Because they weren't there to impress anyone. They were there to prove it to themselves. That the engine started from scratch, could now be trusted by the one driver who demands more from a car than anyone else. And when Verstappen stepped out after 118 laps, he gave them the answer. A nod. A quiet word. No fanfare. The base is good. For Max, that's code for, we're ready. And for Red Bull, that means the gamble worked. They walked away from a proven partner. Built an entire power unit with their own hands. and handed it to the most ruthless driver on the grid. And it didn't fail. It ran clean, ran calm, ran quietly, while everyone else was watching something else. By the end of the day, Verstappen had run more laps than any other driver in a single session. He logged data in cold air, full fuel, long stints, soft tires, hard tires. And through it all, the RB22 Ford responded the same way. Calm, consistent, predictable. That's the word that kept coming up inside the garage. Not fast. Not dominant. Not revolutionary. Predictable. To most people, that sounds boring. But in Formula One, predictability is the most dangerous trait a car can have. Because it means no surprises, no sudden failures, no weak spots. It means a driver like Max Verstappen can focus entirely on performance. Without thinking, without compensating, without fighting the car. And when you combine that with Red Bull's notoriously precise data modeling, you get something terrifying. A team that doesn't need to guess anymore. They already know how long the tires will last, how hard they can push the engine, how much ERS to deploy at every corner exit, how many degrees of brake temperature they can tolerate before fade. They ran every scenario in Barcelona, and the car matched their simulations. That almost never happens. And when it does, it means one thing. They've built a system. Not just a car. Not just a power unit. A full-cycle machine, engineered to feed itself. Every lap Verstappen drove in Barcelona added more data, refined the maps, strengthened the predictions. Which means by the time they hit Bahrain, Red Bull won't just be showing up with a strong car. They'll be showing up with a weapon they already know how to use. And no one else is even close. Not Ferrari. Not Mercedes. Not Aston Martin. They're still testing. Red Bull? They're tuning. So if this was the shakedown, if this was Red Bull holding back, then the full version of this car, the real RB22 Ford, might be the most complete Formula One package Max Verstappen has ever had in his hands. And that's what nobody saw coming.